Good evening. I now call this regular meeting, I now call this regular meeting of Goose Creek CISD Board of Trustee to order. The time is now 6:01 p.m. Mr. Campisi, was the meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
And do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Okay. I will now yield to you, Dr. Price, for the opening exercise and recognitions and acknowledgments. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam President, Superintendent, board members, guests, and staff, we'll open our meeting this evening with a prayer by Mr. Howard Sampson, and then we will follow with the regular opening exercises.
Would everyone please, if you got a hat on, take it off, please? Heavenly Father, thank you for this another day. Father, thank you for the people we have here today, that they made it safely. Father, most of all, thank you for our students, because they are the most important thing to us and to their parents. Father, thank you for the board members and our administrator, and most of all, our teachers. Thank you for all of this. In thy name, amen.
Amen. Amen. At this time, opening exercises for the February 17th, 2025 Board of Trustees meeting will be provided by Goose Creek Memorial High School. The Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag will be recited by Trinity Daniels, followed by the Texas flag by Elijah Limbrick.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. A select group of students from our high school will perform tonight. They will sing the song Thank You and Wake Up Everybody, arranged by Jay Allison. Our students will be Maxwell Bailey, Trinity Daniels, Amora Jennings, Elijah Limbrick, Vivian Martinez, Reese Ruleta, DeMarcus Small, Cora St. John, Summer Vance, Taylor Williams, and Ornell Zamita. The students are under the direction of choir directors Mr. Douglas Horrell and Ms. Gabrielle Wall. Principal is Ms. Kelly Stark. Take it away, Maestro.
But I can find any words. How can I possibly say
Excellent. Do we have any parents in the audience of any of the students? Would you stand, please?
Great job, guys.
Great job, everyone. And we want to thank you, Goose Creek Memorial Choir, for coming and performing for us this evening. As they are exiting, we're going to prepare for recognition and acknowledgments of the Houston Area Alliance of Black School Educators. Teacher recognition. Dr. Romanek, would you come up, please?
While Dr. Romanek is coming up, I want to slip in here just for a minute while we're breaking down. We have some other special guests. I know there's VIPs across the audience, but I have a special group here from the University of Houston Clear Lake. They're here visiting as a part of their doctoral program. Can we make them feel a Goose Creek welcome? Will y'all please stand up? Stand up if you're part of the doctoral program. All right, y'all dressed better than me tonight. All right, good. All right, Dr. Remenig, back to you, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Dr. Randy O'Brien. It is my distinct honor to recognize some of our incredible educators who were nominated by their campus principals for the prestigious HASB Teacher Awards and Recognition Ceremony, also known as TARC. These nominations are a testament to their unwavering dedication to student success and their impact on our school communities. The HAPSI TARC Awards celebrates excellence in education by honoring educators who demonstrate leadership, inspire students, and foster a positive and supportive learning environment for all. These distinguished educators were recognized on January 16th at the George R. Brown Convention Center, alongside other regional education leaders from across the greater metropolitan area. This nomination alone is a significant achievement, highlighting them as role models not only on their campuses, but throughout the entire greater educational community. Tonight, we are proud to celebrate their remarkable contributions, and we want to thank them for their passion and service. At this time, I would like the following 2025 TARC awardees to be recognized. From Asheville Smith, we have Mary Cruz Rodriguez. From Crockett Elementary, we have Miss Tarana Baptiste. From George Washington Carver Elementary, we have Jasmine Nightingale. The following two are not with us tonight, but we certainly want to recognize them. From Highlands Elementary, we have Ebony Edwards. Her principal is here, along with Miss Bianca Prosper from Pumphrey Elementary. Representing De Zavala Elementary, we have Jalen Farr. From Travis Elementary, we have Taronda Long Gibson. Also unable to join us tonight is Kayla Jackson from Cedar Bayou Junior School. We want to recognize her as well. Representing E.F. Green Junior School is Miriam Williams Augustine. Highlands Junior School is Mr. Robert Richard.
You forgot the most important thing.
Representing Goose Creek Memorial, Coach Shay Montgomery. And lastly, representing Stewart Career Tech High School, Mr. Jesus Zapata. Thank you again.
Hey, Dr. Remenette. Dr. Remenette, before you dismiss, I have one little thing I'd like to say.
Yes.
All right, to the group that we just honored, I want to say that this makes me really proud of this group and honored as you were tonight. But as I look at it, I look at what a better time to take the moment to mark this event because it's doing Black History Month. And from an organization of being honored by your area, Houston Area Teachers Association that oversee this group. And I wanted that you guys shape every one of our student lives every day. And it just brings me such gratitude and joy to sit here and be able to honor you guys tonight. And it's always a great honor to honor any of our teachers. And it was so befitting for the students that sung tonight to, by encouraging and such an uplifting. And I'm going to date myself with a song by Hal Melvin and the Blue Notes. That's the one I really like. So wake up everybody. It's a new day. So if we do that and we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to, nothing but we're going to succeed with our students. So keep doing what you're doing, and we really appreciate it. I'm sorry I had to take that time. But thank you, Dr. Women.
And thank you, Dr. O'Brien. Appreciate you.
Any of the principals of those who were recognized, would you give us a wave? Thank you all. Thank you for your support. At this time, Madam President, we return it back over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Price. Congratulations to everyone.
Citizens participation, and we do have one tonight, and I'm going to read our little excerpt to that. Citizen participation is a time during which the board will hear public concerns or public comments from those who have properly signed up to address the board. At regular board meetings, the board will allow public comments regardless of whether the item is a topic on the agenda posted with notice of this meeting. Each speaker is reminded that he or she is limited in his or her presentation to a minimum of 3 minutes, which can be further reduced or limited by the presiding officer. Please also remember you should respect confidentiality concerns and refrain from attacking the personnel character of any individual, student, staff member, or board member in addressing concerns or comments. Pursuant to state law and board policy, be legal, the board cannot consider or take action on concerns at this meeting unless they pertain to an item on the posted agenda for this meeting. Any deliberation or discussion on an item that is not posted for consideration at this meeting shall be limited to the proposal to be placed, the subject on agenda for further meetings. Tonight, we're going to call Anaya Garcia to the podium as our speaker who has signed up our guests. And Mr. Campisi will take your time, and he's our timekeeper tonight, our secretary. And it's on you, Mr. Campisi.
Good evening. You're limited to 3 minutes, like President Baratem said. We'll start the time when you begin to talk. I'll let you know when you have 1 minute remaining, and then I'll stop you at 3 minutes. You can proceed.
Dear members of the school board, I
Pardon me just a moment. We'll restart your time if you would lower the microphone and speak directly into it so everyone could hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Sorry. Dear members of the school board, I am here to express my concerns regarding the potential adoption of the Bluebonnet Learning curriculum in our schools. After carefully reviewing the materials, I am deeply troubled by the curriculum's approach. One of the most significant issues with the Bluebonnet Learning curriculum is its distortion of historical facts. For example, in the lesson titled The Foundations of American Democracy, taught in 6th grade, students are presented with a heavily biased and incomplete view of the nation's founding. The curriculum downplays critical historical events such as the systemic oppression of indigenous people and the institution of slavery, presenting them in a light that fails to adequately address the complexities of our nation's past. This selective storytelling misrepresents the truth and undermines students' ability to develop a well-rounded understanding of history. By omitting essential perspectives and minimizing the impact of these dark chapters in American history, we risk perpetuating ignorance and preventing students from engaging with the full scope of their heritage. As a product of GCCISD myself, learning history has greatly shaped my worldview. And while there are many critics of history who argue that it creates a development of a negative opinion of being American, I would argue the opposite. When we acknowledge the dark past in our nation, we are able to celebrate those who fought for change and move forward together as a society into a brighter tomorrow. Furthermore, the Bluebonnet Learning curriculum introduces religion in its lessons in a manner that is inappropriate for public education. In the Moral Foundation and Values unit, taught in 4th grade, students are asked to explore concepts such as the role of religion in shaping society, but the curriculum presents these ideas from a particular religious perspective, often favoring one religion over others. For example, in discussions about the nation's founding, the curriculum asserts that many of the founding fathers were deeply influenced by Christianity, without acknowledging the influence of other belief systems or emphasizing the constitutional separation of church and state, and that freedom of religion is also freedom from one specific religion. This could alienate students of different faiths or non-religious backgrounds, and as someone whose faith aligns with the religion being favored, I am still deeply uncomfortable about teachers being potentially responsible for introducing students to a crisis of faith through this curriculum. If this curriculum was being implemented for a private school or a homeschooled student, it would be their prerogative to choose if it aligns with their views. However, we are a public school system who is responsible for the education of such a broad and diverse population, and implementing this curriculum would be in direct conflict with the district's goal of equity. I strongly urge the school board to reconsider adopting the Bluebonnet Learning curriculum, as it risks confusing students, limiting their ability to critically engage with historical content, and violating the principles of religious neutrality in education. We must ensure that our students receive an education that is accurate, inclusive, and free from ideological biases. How can we teach students to have good morals if we sell their education in the name of extra funding? Thank you for your attention to this important matter. I hope that you will make the decision that is in the best interest of our students and their education.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Okay, we will now move to approval of minutes. The minutes for our last regular board meeting, February the 3rd, 2025, was provided to each of our board members. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And do I have a second? Do we have any discussion? There be no further discussion. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, it's approved. Motion carries with 7. No, Amy? Okay, we will move now to discussion items. And Dr. O'Brien, this is your area for superintendent's report. So I will turn it over to you, sir.
Yes, Madam President. I'm excited this evening. Under superintendent's reports, we have 3 phenomenal presentations coming before you, starting off with our first one from CNI, be the middle of the year update on CNI. Then we'll have our human resources annual update and special education update as well following that. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bollinger. Mr. Flood, thank you.
Good evening, President Brat-Timms, Dr. O'Brien, and board members. We're going to go through a briefing, and we will not be up here as long as we were last time unless you choose for us to be. We won the award last time. So I have my team here, Ms. Callahan, Ms. Flushy, Dr. Martinez, and Ms. Cornelius that we'll go through.
What you're saying is there will be no overtime sessions for this presentation?
Not unless Mr. Clem causes it to happen.
All right, we are here. We're going to share about Bluebonnet, but first I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Flushy, and she's going to talk about just some IMRA reminders, and then I'll come back on and talk about a process we went through as it relates to Bluebonnet.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. So Instructional Material Review Approval Process is what IMRA stands for. It was driven by House Bill 1605. So House Bill 1605 is a product of a teacher committee where the state of Texas brought teachers together to say what are the obstacles, what are the barriers to your success or willingness to continue in the profession. And so when the teachers were given that platform, they made an opportunity to say, these are the things that we feel are most undermining our ability to be successful in education. And so from that came some mandates out of House Bill 1605. And so one of the things that came about was the IMRA process. And so traditionally, we adopt instructional materials through what's known as a proclamation. You historically have always approved instructional materials that way. But as you remember from our previous meetings, those are gone. And so now that we're moving toward the IMRA process. So within IMRA, the state deems, they audit materials with teacher committees. We did have several teachers from Goose Creek that were participating in those committees, and they audit vendors' materials. And then they come up what they determine are HQIMs, or high-quality instructional materials. For ELA, currently, there are only HQIMs available for grades K through 5, but for math, they are available for K-12. The state timeline was that they wanted to put out the materials for review in the winter with the goal of districts having the opportunity to adopt and implement those by fall of 2025. And so that's just kind of a quick overview.
All right, and I am going to review part of the timeline. We've talked about the timeline in September and January, so I'm going to kind of just have your eyes kind of rotate over to spring 2025. And so this is where we've done the IMRA public comment window. We had an opportunity to create the survey and provide links for each grade level, kindergarten all the way to 5th grade. We sent it out along with the parent letter to all of the parents in Goose Creek. So they had an opportunity to look at a grade level that they were interested in, look at the parent letter, and then if they had an opportunity to provide comments on any section of the unit. So they got the full shebang of the curriculum. Then we had committee recommendations. So we had a committee come out, and we'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. But we did have the committee come out, and they were able to look at those comments that we gathered from the community, and we created a process for that. Today, we are updating the board on those comments, the feedback that we received, and then we'll have an opportunity, and during the committee work, there were some adjustments that were going to be put forward to adjust some of the things in the curriculum. We are going to talk about the implementation timeline and then the curriculum supports and the professional development. So by the time we get to summer 2025, we will roll out, if all is approved, train staff, and then progress monitor and make adjustments as it relates to Bluebonnet curriculum. So on this slide here is kind of walk you through the committee. We sent out 146 invitations. The individuals that were invited, we had principals, TLCs, the ILC, which is the Instructional Leadership Committee, so that means every campus could invite a representative. We had sent out invitations to the board members, also to deans and I think I said the TLCs. So out of all those invitations, we had 74 that were accepted to come out, And so when they did come out, we broke them up into subcommittees, and the subcommittees are listed on the slide. I won't read through all of them, but I will move over to the committee task. So we did have a task for the committee to complete. So they looked at the comments, and we had 160 responses. So once they looked at those, we put them in table groups as it relates to the grade level for ELA and for math. And so once we looked at those 160 responses, the next step for them was to decide that we want to adopt things as it relates to that curriculum. That means make no changes to the curriculum, like, hey, yes, it's a go. We like everything about that unit. Or was it adapt? Do we have anything that we want to revise as it relates to the curriculum? Advise, provide clarity about the curriculum, and then abandon, remove from the curriculum. So when we move on to the next slide, Sarah is going to be able to put those 4 words into a category as it relates to the concerns that parents had. And some of the units parents were oh, I'm sorry. You took the mic from, oh, wow, geez, Sarah. And then we had some units where the parents were like, oh, yes, that's great. So she's going to talk to you kind of sort of about that. All right, if she does. But I'm going to take the mic from her because I think we need to be equal.
So for language arts, there were 3 overarching concerns that emerged from the feedback from the community and from our staff. Concern number 1 was curriculum appropriateness and engagement. So just kind of in a nutshell, there were concerns that it was perhaps too challenging in places. Other people said they thought it was too simple in places, and then some people said they thought it was dull. And so from the committee, most of their recommendations were to either adapt or to advise. So, for instance, one of the lessons where they said, like, in particular, this seems like it was a dry lesson. They were like, we have AVID strategies, we have lead forward strategies, we have Kagan strategies. Like, let's embed the good things that we have here into that lesson so that we can make it engaging. Because the curriculum's burden is to tell us what and when to teach. It's our pedagogical understanding that kind of overlays that understanding of what engagement looks like, what good instructional practice looks like. So let's do that. With regard to advising, some of the curriculum said, or some of the feedback for the curriculum said, we really want to advise the community in any change that we're going to make whenever we think that something was too simple or too challenging. We want to advise the staff through our PDs, maybe create FAQ documents. So they had various ways that they want to advise either staff or principals, teachers, or the community about the changes they want to see. For concern number 2, it was about the historical accuracy and diversity. That was the second most common piece of feedback. Particularly, there was concern about the superficial portrayal of historical facts, a lack of diversity and representation. We saw that. And so one of the recommendations that was made is that we adapt the curriculum to make sure that we are having an inclusive curriculum, that we are making sure that all of our students see themselves in the learning. And there's nothing from TEA that says that we can't make those adjustments. We are empowered to adjust based on what we think is right and best to the curriculum. And so again, we would need to advise whether it's through written pacing guides, what our changes are we want to make, through our PDs, through those FAQs online. And then one of the other things they wanted was to make sure that we were acknowledging that while the curriculum does have historical information in it, it is not supposed to be a supplement for social studies curriculum. The TEA has been very clear about that. It is a knowledge-building curriculum, but you still have to have separate social studies instructional time. And that would be where the lessons would go into more depth and more detail with the social studies standards. It's not really the burden of the ELA instructional block. And then with concern number 3, the need for a neutral and inclusive curriculum, there was a concern about the volume and partiality of religious references in RLA units. And so we didn't see many recommendations from the committee about abandoning lessons. We did not see that. But where we did, it was around this concern number 3. And so there, for instance, might be a lesson where the students are reading a poem, and then for a paired passage, because that's a very challenging TEK for our students, but a paired passage might be to bring in a hymn, a specific hymn. And so the committee would say, we would like to maybe adapt that lesson to replace that hymn. Whereas opposed to like another unit might be a larger reference to religious content, and they said, hey, for this unit, lessons 1 through 4 are okay, but we would like to see you abandon lesson 5. And so one of the things that we have to think about on the curricular side is when all curriculums have to be built in a systematic way, meaning they move from simple to more complex and sophisticated skills. When you remove a lesson, what skill gaps are going to be created by abandoning that lesson? And that's where we have to sit down and say, okay, we've abandoned lesson 14. That's where compound sentences were being introduced. What are we going to do to adjust that? And so that would be part of CNI's work that we would do on the backside with this curriculum. So those are the major concerns that were brought about from ELA and the major work of the committee. Anybody have any questions or?
Well, I just think it's not appropriate to answer citizens' participation during a presentation, but coincidentally, what you just shared aligns with that. And I think if you go back 1 or 2 slides, Ms. Jackson, the bottom right-hand corner, that's what you were just referencing in essence. So,
yes, sir.
If I understand right, just to be clear, the state's proposal was to align what we instruct with what they test. Yeah. And through that, it may have a broad plethora of things, and it's each teacher's individual responsibility and through the CNI department to identify the most relevant, most important lessons to be taught through utilizing these strategies right here: adopt, adapt, advise, and abandon.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So that's really going to boil down to the instructions received from this panel to everyone who works in CNI or in these departments, but also it'll be up to the individual teacher, like you said, to determine the robust nature and using the AVID strategies and those types of things to incorporate to bring these lessons to life, not to teach them as a canned teach this, teach that. I mean, it's still a teacher's job to identify the most relevant TEKs, if you will, what has to be taught and how it's taught so that it does align with the state testing. Am I right?
Yes, sir, that's absolutely correct. And the state, it's not part of House Bill 1605, but part of the STAR 2.0 redesign was that the passages on the test have to align to what the content that's being taught in science and social studies. So if they're studying Cherokee relocation in 4th grade, then we would expect to also be studying Cherokee relocation as part of the reading language arts curriculum. Again, not to supplement that social studies curriculum. That's separate instructional time where they go into detail there. But in order to build background knowledge and build that vocabulary, you think about the goal of our early learning centers is to close that knowledge gap, and that's the goal of this as well. But we would need to be looking at those recommendations from the committee. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. O'Brien, but I know that critics has had some concerns on the Bible-based teaching in this particular Bluebonnet. How will we meet the separation of church and state? And how's that going to be presented for our teachers to be able to separate that? Mm-hmm. And then we have to look at our students and those students who may be non-Christian backgrounds, mm-hmm. and how would that other children treat them? So I know that's a lot. But
no, that's a really important question. And so one of the things that we've been looking at is, what's the volume? What's the impact on this curriculum? So if every lesson adds up to 100%, for instance, there are 2 major portions of the curriculum. There's the skills portion and there's the knowledge portion. In the skills portion, almost none of the feedback came from there. We have not found a single lesson in the skills portion that references religion in any way. It's in the other portion, the RLA units, where you find them. And, it comes down to there's those sort of gray areas that we're going to have to address. Because there's black and white references to religion in pretty much every curriculum that you encounter. A Christmas Carol, for instance, is taught in most curriculums that you'll find. And most people, they're comfortable with that text because it's not being taught from a lens of like indoctrination, right? It's when it crosses the line, which is a personal preference, right, based on a person's values, that we have to kind of provide that clarity to our staff. So we're finding in the RLA units, approximately, depending on the grade, 4 to 8% of those lessons, which is the other half. So I guess approximately 2 to 6% of what we've found audited so far has religious references.
So it would be categorized as advise.
That would definitely, it could be advised,
okay.
It could be abandoned depending on the degree of if the entire text is something that the committee felt needed to be reevaluated, and that's where we would have to come in and say, well, we can't abandon the skills that were being taught in there, so we're going to instead probably do that adapt, where we supplement a different text of some sorts. So, but it's going to have to be in the pacing guides. House Bill 1605 mandates that any adjustments also are made public to our families. So we would have to make it public to our families so that they know exactly which lessons and units have been adjusted. So all of that would have to be probably online through our parent portal is how most people are
Sorry to ask
recommending.
you so many questions, but
You're
I think
fine.
this will apply to the other subject matters as well. The questions we're asking you because you went first.
I know. I sat in the wrong seat. Anything else, though?
Yes.
So, go ahead on.
Okay, so because these are going to have to be revised on such an individual basis, does adopting Bluebonnet then not open the floodgates for teachers who would like to teach that religious material to do so?
So one of the things that the state has said is, look, the TEA materials are completely online, right? Like the entire curriculum is available online right now for every parent. But the school district gets to decide which adjustments they feel are best and right to their lesson. And we do that now, right? We don't ever adopt, no matter what material we bring on board, we don't ever teach it as is. We make those adjustments based on our data, based on student needs, based on time. And so we would have to do that locally, and then we would have to make those recommendations to the staff. And it wouldn't be recommendations. It would be in the pacing guide.
Okay.
You know, lesson 17 has been adjusted in this way. Lesson 4 has been abandoned, move on, you know.
Right.
But we would have to do that on our side in our pacing guides and then make those adjustments public to the community as mandated by House Bill 1605.
Okay, thank you.
And also I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's your world. Keep going.
I don't know about that.
So this particular curriculum is going to make a difference in student outcome measures and their math, reading, and writing. So this is going to totally help us, supposedly, to bring scores up, and is based upon within a learning environment that is Christian-based.
So that's what I want to kind of talk about is that we are not giving religious instruction. You know, that's not what this is. If you think about it, Bluebonnet is very broad. We talk about, you know, culture. It talks about topics like history. It talks about the arts. And talks about science. So they will make religious references and take sampling from our faith. So it's not just Christian. They have Hinduism that's mentioned in there as well. So I just don't want people to think that it's religious instruction, because
it's not proselytizing. It's not preaching. It's simply having those resources as a tool.
Exactly. And it just makes some references. So we do have that opportunity, as Sarah said, that, you know, we can look through, and some of those, you know, that we think may be a little bit too contentious, we can remove those. The other thing I wanted to say briefly is that, you know, we've utilized Amplify at 3 of our campuses currently now, and 3 of them are comprehensive campuses. So I say all that
For clarification, Amplify is the new Bluebonnet.
It is. It has all of the TEKS. So the difference is when Amplify came out, it came out COVID 2019, 2020. So it was a, you know, core, what is it called?
Emergency release.
Yeah, it was emergency release. So now with Bluebonnet, that means all of the TEKS, that's how it qualifies as a HQIM, because all of the TEKS for each grade level is in there. It is very transparent. Sarah talked about the portal, so parents can go in, they can look at what we are getting ready to teach unit by unit ahead of time. So I was saying that since we've been utilizing Amplify at our 3 comprehensive campuses, and we got data back, I got data back last week, and we also have Ignite. Ignite is a one-on-one tutoring program where we looked at those numbers and we compared those students from MOY utilizing Ignite in conjunction with Tier 1 instruction. We have kids knocking it out the park, which means that on their projected RIT, some of them doubled. That's in conjunction with Tier 1 Amplify, what we're currently using, and the supplemental that we're giving them, Tier 2 Ignite. So that's just some of the data that we've collected that shows, because Bluebonnet is skills. It's a lot of skills. It's a knowledge-based curriculum, but it does teach a lot of the skills, decoding that our students need.
It aligns with assessment.
I would like to respond to that. Okay, so as you said that the curriculum isn't proselytizing, it's just a reference to. But as Ms. Sarah said, if, for instance, we were to have a hymn to compare to a poem, a lot of hymns actually are very explicitly proselytizing within the hymn itself, preaching how, God is good and Jesus is, the truth, and the Christian God is the truth. And so in the curriculum itself, it is proselytizing in a certain way. And as Ms. Sarah said, that a lot of these materials can be absolutely black or white in terms of if they reference a religion whatsoever. So would it then not be appropriate to just remove or abandon those that do reference any religion?
And we can, and I think, for me, because we talked a lot about the religious, but there are racial things in there as well that people don't feel comfortable with. So I think we can, and that's what we've done. Our due diligence is reading through and getting comments from parents to see what would definitely just send you over the edge. And so if there is something that's in there that's too religious or whatever, and I don't mean to say too religious, because what's too religious to some may not be to the other, but we also have to think in mind we all come from a different background. So something that I may be like, oh no, you may be like, oh, okay, that's great. So
I really disagree with what he's saying. I'm good with that, but I'm saying that. I'm going to stay out of it.
Oh,
well, the point is, I think the point is, we don't want to be the religious police, if you will. Yeah. And I think the 4 strategies are really what we're going to lean on and throughout this entire process. In fact, it's something we'll evaluate annually. Yeah. So should we get parents that are unhappy with the abandoned lesson throughout the course of the year, they wanted that reinstituted, we'll get that feedback and we'll consider that for the annual update.
Well, and the goal isn't even to wait till the end of the year. We have local policy that guides our instructional material review and feedback from families. You don't have to wait. If the materials are available through your portal, you can look at them and then you can complete there's a guidelines on the documents to complete, and then we get that and then we make those reviews and adjustments. That happens all the time. And so I know we're talking a lot about these things in the lens of Bluebonnet Learning, but as an ELA person for over 2 decades here in Goose Creek, it's every year. It's every year, and you never can predict it. I can go years and not have somebody raise a comment about a text that we've been using, and then someone will call. And you think, gosh, the teacher taught it through a lens that I didn't think about, that I wouldn't have taught. Maybe they overemphasized something. Maybe they read into the text in a way that I didn't or nobody else had. And so you're constantly sort of pivoting and adjusting, and you're partnering with the families, listening to their concerns, because voice and choice does matter. It has always mattered here in Goose Creek. If a parent does not want their child to engage with a text, we make adjustments.
I like that.
That's our process.
So adoption is not the end game.
No.
Adoption is just the beginning of an ongoing process.
Yes.
We
have local policy and guidelines that drive that. I mean, we live that all the time.
And you were very clear about that when you prefaced your words, that it's not mandated. We can adjust. We can adopt. We can change whatever we need to.
Yes.
My question is more, who are the we you spoke about? If we feel it's too much this way or that way, then we will look at it. Can you elaborate more on who the we is that's actually going to look at that and make those adjustments and recommend?
It's Ms. Jackson.
Adapt, advise, and abandon.
Well,
if we can only put it on one person, it's a committee.
We will have a committee. We have teachers, TLCs, and even community people that are involved in that. So the we is a collective group.
Yeah, the public comment window was like layer 1, and that's what TEA did. They had a public comment window. We received that feedback, and then they will have ongoing input from the public throughout the year and make adjustments. They'll have another MR committee meet next summer as well to make more adjustments.
Nobody read it all up until this point, and it'll become something once it hits the classroom. So the question, who is we? And I just want that to be clear, that it's not 4 people at a table right now.
No.
We is much bigger than that.
Yeah, the EMRA committee alone was 76 people that attended and 146 that were invited. We have no desire for this to be like one person's view of what's right and best. And we also have no delusion that when we make our adjustments, that will be the end.
Thank you.
So we have 3 more subjects to go through, but
I'm so sorry, ELA.
Yeah. You're up, Mr. Sampson. You're up.
He forgot.
Excuse me. Number 2, historical accuracy.
Yes, sir.
There's no history that we teach in our schools like when I was going to school in this district. Black history, Latino history, any kind of history. So what makes this, in your words, a superficial portrayal of historical facts?
Sure.
Lack of diversity in representation. The key is the word diversity and lack of and superficial. So why are we trying to go to this program, the Blue Bonnet? I mean, what have we been doing that makes it so different than Blue Bonnet?
So with regard to the superficial, like what are the concerns? I'll give you an example of one. There was a concern about a unit about World War II. And in the units and lessons on World War II, it doesn't go into the nuances of the atrocities that were World War II. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, we do not generally teach the full depth and breadth of genocide to smaller children. We do, by nature, most curriculums do omit some details for smaller children. And in addition, I would say that it's not the burden of the RLA curriculum to teach the social studies to the full depth and breadth. There are other social studies minutes where those topics are taught explicitly. The goal of the RLA portion of Bluebonnet learning is to build schema, like I said, much like the early learning academies where you have these experiences, is to build background knowledge. So when they're reading texts that are about these really complicated topics, like about weather change and those sorts of things, they have background knowledge. So you asked about the why. We don't have a systematic curriculum that aligns to the other content areas. And that's where the state is moving the STAR test. If you know you're going to be, like I said, be reading about weather patterns, if you know you're learning that in science, that it's possible that's going to be on the ELA. It's going to be the reading portion of the ELA test. And so this is the goal, to take the curriculum and align it to these other content areas so that they're kind of working together to build that knowledge base for students.
So how much of the historical parts that I'm talking about will be taught in this?
Can you tell me more when you say that?
In other words, as when I was at Sterling or whatever, they taught Black history. Okay. You have now, this Bluebonnet is going to teach more historical facts besides social studies?
Yes, it does. Well, and that's typical for a language arts curriculum. I mean, generally we are studying about other historical, because every TEK for language arts, almost every TEK for language arts has to be taught with a text. And those texts are almost always science or social studies based, right? They're just not intentionally tied to the exact topics that they would be studying in those grades. And so this is more closely aligned to the topics that are studied in those grades. I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it circles.
Yeah, if you'd like, I can get you a list of the exact topics for each. I mean, we have that. Yeah. We have the list for each unit so that you can see. There are the individuals that you often think about whenever you're talking about elementary curriculum and historical people. We study about Dr. King. We study about Harriet Tubman. We study about, like I said, the Cherokee relocation events. And the only part of it is related to history. A lot of it is related to science as well. But I can get you the list of topics if you'd like that.
So I think his main question was, is this curriculum omissive of particular historical events?
The burden of this curriculum is not to teach every historical event. No, sir. It is
but has it selectively omitted some? Such as diversity type items.
Right.
Well, from what I have seen, no, I have not seen that. Where the concerns have been around diversity is that if it references religion, it references predominantly Christian religion. So with regard to diversity, that's where we were seeing those comments from those 160 public comments. It was less about diversity and representation of ethnicity and more with regard to religious diversity. And so that was why that comment was there.
So from a religious standpoint, and I'm Jewish.
Yes, sir.
Is that going to be taught about the Holocaust and everything? Or if I'm Muslim?
Right.
Is that going to be taught in this particular curriculum?
So no religion is taught in that way with regard to like those historical moments and that religion. It may reference it. For instance, there's this unit on, I think it's in second grade if I remember, and it's on the idea that we have something we call the golden rule, right? Which is technically from, oh, that's in kindergarten, that's right, thank you. It's technically from a religious text, right, the golden rule. But the unit isn't about that. It's not about the golden rule being from a religious text. It's about the idea that, hey, there are a lot of religions around the world,
right.
and many of these religions have their own golden rule, and it describes what those other religions' golden rules are. And then, so it talks about, like, what does that mean, the golden rule, like, to do unto others and to be a good citizen, basically. And then the rest of the unit is basically about helping your neighbors and helping, you know what I mean, following the golden rule. So the burden of that unit isn't to teach religion or to teach any one historical event. It's to teach a theme around being a good person, and it begins with those. And again, the committee, they looked at those individual lessons that the public comment we received it on, and they made recommendations on what to do or not to do with those lessons. Am I misunderstanding your question?
No, I think that covered it really well.
And in reference to what Randy said about this, even with the golden rule, like saying, do unto your, the golden rule there, you're not proselyting, you're just teaching them what this means for this religion or whatever the other golden rules are for the other religions.
I think it's just important that we remember everyone does have different values that they bring to the table, and we do need to respect their values and their voice and their choice with that. So it's going to be an important part of our ongoing
But in that particular
work.
lesson, it might have been emerging themes. What are common amongst the golden rules of various religions? It might have been. I'm not saying it is. I haven't read it, but thank you. That was a very good explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
I hope Howard got his answers. I know what Howard was looking for, but I didn't want to say it.
So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Cornelius, and it's so nice to say that math doesn't have any of these issues. So
I'm sitting here. Just want two statements for clarification. Go ahead. What fractions are they? I'm sorry? And we got to keep them all. So math, for math, just a little context. For the past 3 years, we've been piloting Eureka in K2. And this year, we're piloting Carnegie in our honors track for 6th through Algebra 2. I mentioned that to say those are the base products for Bluebonnet learning in math. So with our committee, they've already compared both products. Any errors that were in terms of teak alignment, any errors in terms of not applying the ELPS or a missing teak or error in just the content was already addressed in Bluebonnet. So the committee members that I had were more focused on implementation and making sure implementation goes smoothly, and also our teachers receive what they need. So for example, in K2, the feedback was about instructional support and adaptation. They wanted to ensure how in our instructional minutes are we going to be able to address intervention and also spiral review. They also wanted more problem-solving opportunities for those K5 classes, and also to ensure that differentiation in the curriculum. And as Sarah mentioned before, that differentiation, that engagement, that comes from our Kagan strategy, that comes from our lead forward strategies. So it's just helping our teachers and supporting our teachers on how to implement those strategies. And the next point that they had was professional development and teacher guidance, making sure that our teachers understand the flow of those lessons and the components of those lessons. As I mentioned, we pilot. We are piloting Eureka in K2. Our 3-5 is going to be our new group. So they wanted to make sure how is the professional development going to be differentiated between both groups. And then they wanted to make sure that we have a plan for that. And last, communication and accessibility. They wanted to make sure that we had a frequently asked question document, a living document, so that teachers can anchor to and refer to for any clarification that they need. And also they mentioned the family guides, and in the last board presentation, there was a question about family guides. What Bluebonnet has done this time is incorporated the family guides within the student book, so it's right there. So if a student takes the book home, that family guide is there in that book for the parents to help to support their student. And last, in terms of K5, just resources to help with implementation. They just wanted some support with that. If a teacher decides that they prefer to do the activity as a peer deck or as a matching activity, or put it in or place it in a slide, they wanted to make sure that we can support them with that, and that assists with their autonomy that they ask for. So those were the recommendations from K5. Next slide. Any questions?
You just mentioned Carnegie, Eureka, and Bluebonnet all in your conversation, and we're piloting this and we're piloting that. Mm-hmm. So what are we abandoning, and what are we keeping, what are we abandoning, and what are we adopting?
So, Mr. Clem, Carnegie is separate, and it's what we did pilot, and we didn't abandon anything. We just put it in our honors. But Eureka is Bluebonnet. They just renamed it like Amplify.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that confuses a lot of people?
Yeah, it does.
Very much.
Okay.
We didn't want. We wanted to Texanize it. What we call it.
We're really already using it. We're just going to put a new label on it.
Correct.
In math.
Correct.
In math.
Okay.
In math.
Before we move any further, could we go back to slide 5? And I promised I was going to be quiet tonight, but I just can't. Under the subcommittees, is that representative of what is in Bluebonnet curriculum?
Yes.
The grades?
Yeah.
Yes.
ELA, K1 through 5,
yes.
ELA, K2 math, 3-5 math, 6-8 math, and Algebra 1.
Correct.
Yes.
So essentially, Bluebonnet is going to affect elementary ELA and elementary and junior high math.
Correct.
It was really not going to move into high school at all.
Carnegie will for math. But
okay, don't say other curriculum models to me. My question's about Bluebonnet.
Well, correct. Carnegie is going to be at the high school.
Is Carnegie part of Bluebonnet?
Yes.
Think of it as a pyramid.
So the front end of my car is a Ford, the middle is a Chevrolet, and the rear end is a Toyota.
I think you got it.
And you have an umbrella, and you have an umbrella called Bluebonnet.
Okay. Yes. All right, cool. I got it. And this is going to make our STAR scores go out the roof, right?
Yes.
We hope they're aligning the test to this curriculum, so that's
they who?
TEA.
I rest my case.
I'm not going to argue with that either, Mr. Glenn.
Who said yes about the STAR?
I said that they're aligning the STAR test to
but
this
curriculum. Who said yes?
TEA.
When he said it's going to make our scores go out of the roof.
They're supposed to, theoretically, but he said.
Who said yes?
Well, I'm hoping yes. Strong hope. We all are.
We all are.
So well, that's the whole purpose of this.
Right. That's why we're doing it.
Oh, y'all not done.
Just quickly for 6 through Algebra 1, the committee had secondary committee had the same type of feedback in terms of curriculum pacing and adaptability. They wanted to ensure that teachers have some autonomy in creating the curriculum and pacing of the curriculum. And also if there's any supplements that we can provide them in terms of their diverse students to support them in those resources. Again, the professional development was presenting as well. They wanted to make sure that they had time in the summer to really dive down into the curriculum so that they can plan appropriate for it. And that's the same thing with K5 as well, with K2 teachers being self-contained. They didn't feel like they had enough time during the school year to plan for Bluebonnet and for their other 4 content areas. So they're asking for more time this summer with training and planning. And then last but not least, the trust and accountability. I had 6 administrators that attended my committee. And one of their main questions is, how are we going to monitor that teachers are doing, implementing the curriculum with fidelity? And that's one of their main requests. How can we support them to make sure it's implemented appropriately? And those strategies are going to be created and reviewed by the committee so that we are all in alignment and all in agreement.
Well, we'll know when to get the scores back, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Any questions about math?
That's the ultimate accountability. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we learned this couple of years. But I was just going to say, and I appreciate the part where they added the parents' involvement in that, so the parents can help their children. I think Randy was helping his son. They wanted to put him in summer school one year. Is that right, Randy?
Sure. Whatever you say.
Well, he's not going to say no, just like y'all ain't going to say, like he asked you a question, you ain't going to say no. Of course not.
So our next steps this is the administration recommendation. Then we have a board review and approval. We have the LASSO grant, which is the grant that will provide the professional development to support this implementation, and we'll hear of that in February. Then we update the implementation plan mid-March, and of course update you as well. You heard the words: adapt, advise, abandon revisions from IMRA committee recommendations in spring. And then we start the PD development onboarding systems in spring of 25 and through the summer.
So we as a board are not going to be able to see the revisions until after we approve it?
Well, we're going to have a group that comes together to look at those revisions, just like we would if y'all adopted a new science curriculum. We're not going to take it at face value, so we're going to have subcommittees that a group, like somebody's looking at first grade, somebody's looking at second grade, third grade. And so we will be going through that all probably, I would say, and I'll let you speak to that, all year. We're going to be like probably 9 weeks ahead of the next 9 weeks. So it'll be a yearly process.
So we're going to adopt it and then revise the curriculum as we go.
Yes, that's what we've been doing the whole time. Yeah.
Okay. So when we get to some of these more controversial topics, they will be revised beforehand.
Correct.
By the committee.
Yes. We don't want any controversial topics either, at all.
But did you say that they're already available online? So if
Yes.
anybody wanted to go look at them and
Yes.
provide feedback,
Yes.
we could do that.
Yes, just like we invited all of y'all for that committee meeting, you have access to look at every one of them. So, Mr. Martinez, if you found something that you felt like wasn't appropriate, you could give it to us and let us review it.
Okay.
Hey, that's why y'all get paid the big bucks to do that work.
So, Ms. Jackson, for the people that are tuning in for the first time tonight and listening to this presentation, where do they go to find this Bluebonnet program online, and how do they voice their concerns to, quote-unquote, the committee?
So the district has made a webpage for Bluebonnet Learning, and so they can go to our website and access the links for the material right now. It's already available. If any of you would like it, we can send it to you as well, but on the banner is a link that says Bluebonnet Learning, and you click it and it takes you to each grade's materials, and the student editions, and the readers, the math books as well, family letters that
So
talk
the
about
public can
reviews.
just go on there and access it at will.
Yes,
right?
sir. That's correct.
Right, and that was my question. And can the parent or the public reach out through there? Is there a link that will get information to the committee, or how do they address their concerns and concerns that come to us as a board? How do they address that to the committee, or is there an avenue for that?
So we had a public comment window, and that link was available. But next up, we are revising the local policies now. All of that is happening naturally for the curriculum reviews. And so one of the things we were going to put on there is a link on that webpage that lets parents to take down the public comment window link and now put up an ongoing feedback link. And to that link will need to be the updated guidelines with the whenever you have a concern, the concern document. There's a consistent document that parents use to submit. So we need to put that there as well.
Okay, thank you. So there is an avenue. It's there if people go out and find it, and they have to use it as well.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more
It
time?
said there is an avenue for them to reach out, but they have to
Yes.
go find it. Number one, it's out. It will be out there, but they have to use it.
Yes, well, absolutely. We want to hear the
Right.
feedback from people. I mean, we don't want to get into the next school year and learn there's something that people felt was problematic. Those 160 comments were really great. A lot of them were things that we expected people to comment on, but some were definitely not. And so we definitely want people to take advantage of looking at this material, providing their comments so that we can make adjustments ahead of next year.
Right, and probably the biggest point being is that our ears are open.
1,000%,
Thank you.
absolutely. With our current curriculum too. I mean, it's not just about Bluebonnet Learning.
Right.
In this district, if a parent has a concern about the instructional materials, we want to hear about it.
I knew the answer to every one of those questions. I just wanted to put it out there because most people don't. And when they hear something on the news, bad information spreads really quick. But we are listening. We are looking at this closely, and I know y'all are doing a really good job. It's a lot to look at, but I do want to make sure our public knows we are listening to them. And this isn't a hammer dropping. This is what we're doing. There's a lot going into it, and we are listening.
So I wanted to commend you on your presentation this evening, but more so for this setting up a website specifically for parental comment that you could do. So if I'm not mistaken, what I'm hearing is that Bluebonnet Learning could look different in Katy and Conroe ISD versus Goose Creek CISD based upon parental involvement, teacher involvement, your involvement. It can be adapted according to the needs of our community. Is that right?
Correct. Okay. One more thing. Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have said controversial, because that maybe isn't the right term. Unconstitutional might be a better term. So the reason that I want to say that is because I, as a board member, cannot vote for something that is unconstitutional, right? So a lot of these problems that the community has brought up about the religious material in the Bluebonnet curriculum, sorry, one moment to collect my thoughts. So the reason why I stress the timeline of voting for them and then revising them later is because they are unconstitutional. Some might see it as unconstitutional to vote for it in the first place before they have been changed. And we already have gotten parental feedback on the Bluebonnet Learning, and we already see that there is a lot of parents have a problem with the religious material in them. So if we could get those revised before we bring it to the board to vote on it, that might clear a lot of our conscience and be able to vote for it, whether yay or nay, but vote for it nonetheless.
I would say that would probably be impossible to do a whole year's curriculum. We can do sections, and we could bring you, like when we get it adopted, then we look and say, okay, here's the 9 weeks, and bring to the board that the committee's recommendations were these revisions prior to it being taught.
Right, and I understand the magnitude of it. So I'm not specifically talking about the curriculum regarding or the problems regarding lack of diversity and representation and things like that. Those are definitely things that can be voted on now and then revised later as parents or staff think is appropriate to do so. But it's just the legality of voting for the religious because of separation of church and state. So as Ms. Sarah said, we can see things that are black and white as this definitely mentions religion. That is a black and white statement. This mentions religion. How can we revise it so that people can, so that board members can vote for this?
So, Mr. Martinez, I think one thing, I think I heard him say this potentially controversial or unconstitutional represents 6 to 8% of all the curriculums. You're adopting 92 to 94% of this curriculum. The only thing under consideration at all is that small percentage point. So I think that's what Ms. Jackson was trying to say. We can't shut down the whole adoption to discover the 1% in the first 9 weeks, the 2% or 3% in the second 9 weeks. So
I think we've all agreed that's where the abandon comes in, that anything that is strictly out there to teach one side, we remove and we put in a different story, a different poem that has nothing to do with religion. So
Did I understand that some of that is also relegated to the teacher to do one of the 4 items on a particular area based upon what they post online and the parent can see?
Correct. So, I mean, we could...
For a particular unit?
Yes, but we could abandon something and a parent could see it and say, you know, I want to teach this at home, and they could do that at home even. Right. But we would say in the school district, we're going to abandon this reading passage for a different one that teaches that skill. Does that make sense?
But even if you did section it off and you come back with it, we're still going to disagree. I mean, it's not everybody's going to agree. I'm not going to agree with that, you know, so...
What I would say to that is we're adopting a program with a policy attached to it on how we handle it, and that's probably how we would get to what may be unconstitutional, whatever. As part of our policy, we're looking at that, and we're going to make adjustments and make it the Goose Creek way.
Correct.
So what this team does is the pacing guide, and the pacing guide could be inclusive of that information, right?
Correct.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive presentation. Are you going to get a second trophy? Is that our objective?
I think so.
I know.
But this is the good part. This is the good part.
All of this was the good part.
There's only 3 slides, I believe.
Hey, it was all good so far.
So we talk about our MOI to MOI, which is the one thing we went through that long board presentation before. So what we've done is we've gone through and said, how did we perform last year on MOI, and how are we performing right now? Apples to apples. In 3rd grade, where were we at? Prediction. 3rd grade, where are we at? Prediction. So 3 through 5 RLA, you can see that, and I'm going to start off with Ms. Guy, you said something that was real impactful, that we are looking at the MEET standard. And so you can see there's a 10% growth in the MEET standard and at the approaches. And we've also seen the masters grow. In 3 through 5 math, you see a slight increase in approaches, a 5% increase in the MEETs, and we are about the same on the masters. In the science, we got a dip there, so that's going to be a red flag that we have to look at 66 to 54. And we also dipped on the MEETs, so that's one of the things we have literally sitting out there to look at. Overall, which is how they get scored, because of that dip in that science, it got us the same overall, and an increase in MEETs and a slight increase in masters. So if we work on that science, I think we'll see a big increase. And then junior high, you see it.
Elementary. Was there a change in TEKS for science? That's what I thought.
Yes.
So that probably, yeah.
Yes, thank you for saying that. Never want to look like I'm excusing, though.
Good.
So junior high, we looked at increase in RLA, 6 through 8, and a significant increase in the MEETs, and even a 5% in the masters. So that was really nice. In the math, we saw a slight dip, and that was in 8th grade that caused that. And then we have a good increase in the MEETs and a slight increase in the masters. And in the science, we also saw an increase in the approaches and a significant increase in the MEETs and a significant increase in the masters. So overall, you can see the increases there. In the high school, we saw significant increases in English 1 and in English 2 for approaches. Same for the MEETs and the same for the masters. So the English is looking pretty good. And then algebra, we saw a significant increase there across the board. And so that's really nice to know. And in the biology, we saw an increase there as well for an overall nice increase in both the approaches, MEETs, and masters. So that's good information. And see, it was quick.
Question. So after doing the middle of the year assessments last year, was it a pretty decent indicator of how our students
were
performing? I can't
is
remember
about 90%.
what. Okay.
It's a better indicator than the interim assessment.
Very good. Perfect.
So what I just heard was we're going to do really good this year.
I sure
That's what I
hope
heard.
so.
Any other questions from our board members to this committee?
No.
Thank you all for taking on a very complex presentation.
Yeah, I was just going to say this.
Okay, that presentation took away 15 minutes from our next presentation. I'm joking. What do we have next? We have our annual Human Resources Update.
Do y'all need a stretch break? Are we good to jump in? Okay. Good evening, school board. Good evening, Dr. O'Brien. We're here to provide each year we provide a human resources or HR update, and so we'll do that. We're going to start with introductions and just make sure you have a name to a face. And so, again, I'm Matt Bollinger. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, and we'll just go down the line.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Steele. I'm the Director of Secondary Campuses.
Good evening, Monica Juarez, Director of Elementary.
Good evening, I'm Heather Alatko, and I'm the Human Resources Coordinator.
Hello, my name is Brooke Dockery, the Associate Director for Compensation.
Okay, and so this is our HR leadership team, and so I thought it would be good just to have everyone at the table as we present the slides. Our presentation is really anchored in two documents. One document is the TAPER report, so we're going to talk about the HR or the staffing portion of the TAPER report, and then the second piece is really our strategic plan. So we're going to talk about our human resources and organizational development portion of our strategic plan as it fits in line with human resources. And so we'll hit these topics along the way. We do have a mission statement. We developed this about 2 years ago, and the focus is to grow Giants through recruitment, retention, and development of the district's workforce, utilizing HR's best practices. And really those three things are primarily what we do. Our job is to recruit aggressively, recruit very strategically in the midst of a teacher shortage. And so we want to make sure that we're doing all we can to recruit high-quality candidates to Goose Creek. Keeping them here is the retention piece. And so you'll see that we've implemented some efforts this year to impact our retention. And then also we work with our leaders in developing best practices as it comes to various things such as investigations, hiring, documentation, that sort of thing. And so that's our mission statement. We feel like really covers that. Here's a list of our primary responsibilities, and I'm not going to read through these one by one, but I do want to highlight just a few. Hiring, we have hiring guidelines that our campus principals and our district leaders use when they hire, go through the hiring process. Onboarding, this year we've implemented a digital onboarding process so that our newly elected staff members can complete a lot of their paperwork at home electronically, and so that helps the onboarding experience. And then when they come and meet with us, it's a little more efficient and hopefully a little bit more positive instead of filling out paperwork. We'll talk about recruitment and retention here in a little bit. Also, we're the custodian for all service records and personnel records, and that's a pretty big task for our entire department, where we're managing service records and personnel records to make sure that those are up to date and accurate. And then also a few other things that we address is conflict resolution. And so if there's a complaint, whether it be an informal complaint or a formal complaint, our department usually takes the lead on addressing that and hopefully de-escalating it. And so those are a few of our major responsibilities. Here's some of the TAPER report data, and so I'm going to go through about 5 or 6 slides that hit the TAPER report. And so starting out with our class sizes, and so as you know, through our budget reduction process, we've had to make some adjustments with staffing. For last year, this data is from 23-24, our class sizes are below the state average. That's one of the few times where we say that's a good thing, is to be below the state average. And so that's the case for last year. We're watching this very closely. We know we also made some adjustments for this year. So when we get that data, we want to make sure that our class sizes are in line and not over. And if they are, we'll have to make further adjustments. But that's one metric that we track closely. This next slide shows teacher demographics, and so this is another data point that's reported out on the TAPER report. There's very little difference between 22-23 and last year as far as demographic data. We may have slightly more, this is just for teachers, slightly more Hispanic teaching population and slightly less white teaching population, but those are within 1 percentage point, so pretty much the same thing as the year before. As far as years of experience, we feel like this slide is trending in a positive direction. Our years of experience for our staff went up from the previous year slightly, and you can see that that first-year teacher is 0 years of experience. 2 years ago, 14% of our teaching staff had no experience, and then that number dropped, almost 6 percentage points to 8.6. And so that's a positive because we feel like our principals are looking for more experienced teachers. We want a good balance. It's good to hire new teachers excited and eager, but also to have that experience as well. And so we feel like we're moving towards that goal. You can see in 1 to 5 years, that's probably the biggest jump from the previous year. Teacher retention is always a concern and always a challenge, and so this is I decided to show 4 years on this just to paint a little bit of a picture of what happened during COVID. If you remember, many teachers across the state and in our district stayed put, and so the retention rate was very high in 2021 during COVID, right after COVID. And then we saw a pretty steep decrease following the next few years, and so the drop was almost 10 percentage points statewide, and also Goose Creek was not immune to that as well. This is the first year, this past year was the first year in a few years that retention actually went up a little bit. It also went up statewide, and so we don't like that we're a little bit below the state average here, but we are happy that our retention rate did go up about 1% from the year before, and so hopefully that trend continues. And here in a minute, you'll hear some retention strategies that we've implemented this year with the committee, so we'll share that here in a second. All right, the second to last data piece from the TAPER report shows our highest degree held for our teachers, and so this is just an interesting point. All of our teachers, except for our industry certification teachers, some of our CTE teachers have a bachelor's degree or higher. We have 363 teachers with a master's degree and then 11 teachers with a doctorate degree. And so again, this just sort of paints the picture of what our teachers look like as far as degrees held. Okay, I think I'm going to turn it over now to Brooke Dockery, and she's going to talk a little bit about compensation and TIA.
All righty. So you guys can see by this chart that the district actually offers salaries that are above the state average, which is something we're incredibly proud of. We just so happen to be nestled right in the middle of one of the most highly competitive markets as well. So our team does make it a priority to always be looking and strategizing on ways that we can improve our current compensation structure in order to retain those high-quality individuals all across the district. And one of the ways that we're able to retain and recruit teachers is through the teacher incentive allotment. So the teacher incentive allotment was designed with just that in mind, to reward, retain, and recruit highly effective classroom teachers. So the state provides additional funding to those individuals who hit certain marks based on classroom performance, student learning outcomes, and a few other things. And last year, we were able to designate 161 teachers, and they received over $1.3 million in bonuses, which is huge. So we're excited about growing our program out and refining things and improving that as well so we can continue to roll in more teachers.
Okay, so I'm going to share a little bit about our goals in our department. We surround our work around three pretty big goals, one being our first one where we really want to develop our leaders because we know the impact that they make on their campus and with their staff. So it's critical that we partner with them to help develop them and train them in HR practices. Our second goal is to recruit highly qualified staff. We're always looking for the best and the brightest around the Houston area. We recruit outside of the Houston area, and we want our classrooms with the best educators because we know the impact that it's going to make for those students. And then our last goal is really around retention. We want our employees to love Goose Creek. We want them to love it as much as we do, and we want them to be satisfied in their day-to-day activities, and that will keep them here with us over a long period of time. So that's our 3 major goals that are tied to the organizational excellence of our district. So around leadership development, I think this is an area where our department is really targeting. We look at all opportunities to provide leadership development to not only our principals, our directors, our assistant principals, but also to our aspiring principals that want to become future leaders. So we use the portrait of a leader as our anchor, our document when we design all of our PD, and we focus on those qualities that we want to see in our leaders. So we work on them understanding the ethical and legal obligations that they're entrusted with. We want them to be understanding all the documentation processes and the investigations that are important when they're dealing with issues on their campus. We want them to ultimately lead with integrity so that they're treating our employees fairly and they're providing them with that support to be equitable and have that fairness when they're looking into issues that they're having to deal with.
So our second goal in our strategic plan is the recruitment of high quality teachers. One of the ways that we do that is through our Grow Your Own clinical internship program. So that's where we have university students that come work with some of our best teachers across the district, and they're able to learn alongside them for a year as part of their bachelor's degree. So in the 23-24 school year, we had 30 full-time student teacher interns. 4 of those were paraprofessionals in the district before they became intern teachers, and 23 of them are now working in the district as teachers. So then this school year, we've had a total of 35 interns. Again, 4 were paraprofessionals before they started their internship. From the fall group, we hired 9 of them, and we're hoping to increase that number when we hire for the 25-26 school year. We also attend university and region job fairs, so we did 9 in the fall, and then we'll do 9 again this spring at local universities and then with Region 4. And then we have a district job fair that will take place on April 12th, so we're hoping to invite a lot of great candidates that our principals can hire from there. We've also partnered with 2 universities and their alternative certification programs. So we work with Sam Houston State University and the University of Houston and their alternative certification pathways to get some of our teachers certified. So part of the way that we measure high quality is teacher certification status. A really positive celebration is that over 90% of our Goose Creek teachers are certified to teach in their current assignment. So with our uncertified staff, 85 of them are hired under our District of Innovation Plan and are currently working towards getting certified, and then 54 are adjunct educators. So another celebration in this area is that we hired 171 of these teachers as uncertified. At this point, 35 of them are now working on a certification, and that number will grow significantly over the next couple of months as they're taking assessments and meeting the qualifications to be certified.
All right, and goal number 3 of our strategic plan focuses on increasing teacher retention. And we know that starts with our mentorship supports. And these are supports for all of our new teachers to Goose Creek. We provide all teachers that are brand new to the classroom with a mentor, and any teacher new to Goose Creek with 1 or more years of experience will receive a buddy. Every campus does have a lead mentor that meets with new teachers. They also conduct a book study with our new teachers. And then we have 4 retired principals that do monthly check-ins with all of our mentees. Due to the teacher shortage across the state, we understand the importance of teacher retention. And so we put together a retention committee this school year. We have already met twice during the first semester, and we will meet again this semester. This committee is made up primarily of classroom teachers, but we do have district and campus administrators on the committee as well. This committee has met. They have shared historical retention data, and then we've also looked at research on the teacher shortage. Once the committee met, they came together to look at different ideas and strategies that could help us with our teacher retention. On the next slide, you will see that we put together a list of current retention strategies that this committee felt was very effective. You can look through some of these strategies. A couple of them that came up multiple times within the committee is, of course, the fall break. This is definitely something that our teachers look forward to, and it really keeps them here in Goose Creek. They love the fall break. They do feel like we do provide them with several professional growth opportunities. That came up multiple times, as well as a competitive salary. The part that's listed about effective campus leadership and awareness of teacher concerns at the administrative level, we felt that that was great because that connects with our goal number 1 with developing high-quality leaders. This next slide is what the committee is recommending as far as retention strategies for consideration. So these are strategies that we don't currently have in place, but things that they really felt would be impactful. Some of these do have financial implications, and so we will look at those when we are preparing for future compensation presentations. So, for example, the longevity pay, that came up multiple times within the committee, and this is where they'd get an increase of pay once they hit maybe that 5-year mark, 10-year mark, 15-year mark, as well as the stipend increases for advanced degrees.
Okay, so that's our presentation, and if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer those at this time.
Would you tell me again who was on the retention committee?
So the retention committee was 31 people. It was primarily teachers, but we did have a couple of district administrators on that committee, as well as a couple of campus principals as well.
And how was that committee developed?
I can answer that. What we did was we piggybacked off Dr. O'Brien's Superintendent Connection Committee.
Okay.
It's the Teacher of the Years, Teachers of the Year, and so we asked everyone on that committee if they would be part of a subcommittee, and that's how we formed the committee.
Thank you.
I have a question, just to clarify. So on, I don't even know the number of the slide, but the slide that talks about the certification status, the ones that are District of Innovation teachers, could those be teachers that are fully certified in a specific area, but then maybe they're teaching out of their, like, maybe they're certified elementary, and if we're teaching 6th grade math or science, and their principal said they're a rock star, so I need them in 8th grade, and so then they need to get their middle school certification, but.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So those teachers do fall under our district innovation plan.
Fully certified, just not in what they're teaching.
Correct, yes. And we give those teachers an addendum to their contract, and they have a March deadline to get certified in the area that they're teaching.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on, before you leave, I just want to say, I want to commend you, the DOI program in particular. I've talked to many school districts across the board, and they leave 100% of the burden on the applicant, on the candidate, to complete everything. And you've done a remarkable job instituting, I heard you say it, and it reminded me of it, deadlines. By the March deadline, you must have this done and this done. So every quarter, you're setting up a deadlines for these candidates to complete a portion of their credentialing. And I think it's a wonderful thing. We didn't do that the first year or two because of COVID and what have you. So we've learned from those experiences, and I'm now sharing your work pattern for other schools. So great job.
Thank you.
All right, I believe our next presentation will be from our Rockstar Special Education team, coming up to bring the annual update for them. James, I'll let y'all introduce yourselves.
Good evening, Board, President Barat Timms, Dr. O'Brien, school board members. My name is James Husband. I'm the Director of Assessment and Accountability.
I'm Holly Ferris, Senior Director of Special Programs.
Christina Ritter, Director of Special Education.
And so tonight we will we're coming before the board just to give an update on special programs. The first slide we want to kind of talk about is our results-driven accountability determination levels. In the past, this has been called PBMAS, performance-based monitoring accountability system. And so each year the state has to give us a determination level on our special programs, and we listed here for the last 5 years our determination levels. Now, I will tell you that our determination levels are based on a 4-point scale, 0 through 4. The lower the number, the better. Okay, so you'll see in 2019 we were a 3, and during COVID they did not give us a rating. 2021 we were also a 3, and then 22, 23, and 24 we were both we were a 2. Every time we are a 2 or higher, the state requires us to submit a strategic support plan, and we're going to discuss that as well.
So if I understand, if we attain a 0, we will have attained perfection.
We would obtain perfection,
okay.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our strategic support plan. Because we are a 2, that requires us to engage with TEA quarterly, but it's more than just special education. It's the Department of Testing. We also are really working with our social studies, so it's our academic dean, our associate director of instruction, Faith Longorio. It's also our director of student services, Carrie Smith, because the 2 areas that we're targeting are social studies. We were a performance level 4. We were at 18.9%, and our goal for this year is at least to get to 20% or to surpass that. Our goal for our indicator 18 is really looking at the total number of disciplinary removals for ISS, OSS, or DAEP is to be at 50% or lower, and try and get to performance level 2. And I'll talk more about that in the presentation. So key takeaways, we really want to implement targeted interventions for math, reading, science, and social studies for our students in special ed. We want to enhance teacher training with differentiated instruction and inclusive practices to support our kids in the general ed setting. We want to increase specialized instructional resources and support programs for students that need that additional support. And then really work with our teachers and our teams on strengthening data-driven decision-making to identify and address gaps in student performance.
So some other ways academically we're supporting is we're monitoring our accommodation usage and eduphoria. So one thing we noticed with our social studies was that our students were not using their accommodation. So we're pulling reports, our specialists are going out, having conversations with teachers, and talking about those individual students who may not be using their accommodations to ensure that that is taking place. We are meeting with teachers and campus administrators to look at data. And so we do that after the screenings, after our beginning of the year and middle of the year assessments and those types of things. We're also coaching and modeling from our district dyslexia specialists. They're going into our dyslexia classrooms as well as our SPED ELA and doing coaching and modeling, so they're supporting our teachers in that way. We have PLC training for paraprofessionals on universal design for learning. We also have had our specialists and coordinators help support our PLC. So one of the things that we did to strengthen our team this year was to streamline the information coming from SPED. SPED is a very, very large department. And so we have probably the people we see the most would be our assessment staff. So we have our DIAGs going back to the campus and relaying that information to their SPED team at the campus. So that way it's not the teachers are getting this information, the assessment team's getting this information, and so forth. We also are planning on our resource inclusion and behavior teachers, training on our new curriculum, the Bluebonnet Learning when that comes up, so including our special ed teachers in that training as well, and then, or whatever curriculum that may be, and then also our special ed students participating in campus targeted interventions. So as we're meeting with principals, we're talking about how are you including our special ed kids? How are they getting their House Bill 1416 time? What are we doing? And so it varies from campus to campus depending on what resources they have, if they have extra tutors coming in, those people, but we're ensuring that our students are getting that assistance as well. So with dyslexia, you know that that has been one of the big state mandates that changed. And so Goose Creek, luckily, was ahead of the game, so we had already started putting some things in place when we saw that coming. So most of our students have already transitioned over to special education. We have very few that we are still waiting to be tested or that will be tested by the end of the school year. So most of our students have moved over, which has increased our SPED numbers, quite a bit. And we'll look at those in just a little bit. With our new state mandates, of course, the new dyslexia handbook came out, and there's certain things that we have to follow within that handbook as well. So we do use reading by design curriculum for elementary, and so that is the curriculum that most of Region 4 uses. Region 4 trains on that curriculum. We've used it for several years now. We did implement Reading Horizons curriculum for our secondary because it was faster paced, not quite as basic as our Reading by Design, and we've been seeing success with that as well this year. We're monitoring our dyslexia services and our accommodations through accommodations logs and service logs. We also are sending out, which is mandated by the state, progress reports each 9 weeks for our dyslexic students. We have our district level coordinator and our dyslexia specialist also servicing students, because even with the influx of referrals, we've had an increase in dyslexia, and then moving those students over to special ed, our district specialists are actually servicing groups as well, just based on the need.
Okay, for autism and behavior, we were awarded the grant. It has expired, but we do have with us the STAR autism curriculum in our structured classrooms. That is the gold standard for curriculum at elementary. And at secondary, we have the LINKS. It's an online secondary curriculum for students. We also started this year implementing the SOLAR social skills curriculum that also goes along with STAR autism. It has lots of great video modeling for our students. In addition to that, we do have one board certified behavior analyst, a BCBA, on staff to really help conduct those functional behavioral assessments and help the ARD committees come up with behavior intervention plans for our students. We do have additional campus support provided from retirees who have come back and really helped our teachers who are novice teachers and brand new to the profession to really help them with their IEP goals and progress monitoring and so forth. So next, I want to go back to indicator 18, which really talks about those total disciplinary removals, and kind of look at the last 6 years. While we are at PL3, we have had great growth in that area. 6 years ago, we were at 80.5%, and last year we ended at 56.2%. The outlier in the data is 2021, which we ended the year in 30.1. That was the COVID year. So we met required improvement and received a 0 for that rating. But our goal is to get to 50% or less. We're inching towards that. What is hindering us from meeting that goal is vaping, to be honest with you. With that, if we didn't have to worry about vaping, we would probably be there.
So we attained our behavioral goal while they were home?
Pardon me?
Virtually?
yes.
So this next slide here is a slide from TEA. It just displays graduation rates of all students versus students served in special education. It also shows the dropout rates between all students and students served in special education. We wanted to put that slide in there that showed the 5-year tendency there, and then we wanted to show where we were as a district. So as a district, the state target was an 80% to be at a determination level of 0. We were at 82.4, so we were a 0 in that area, which is a celebration. Our SPED dropout rate, the state target was 1.8%. We were at 0.7%. Our SPED year after RLA pass rate, the state target was 70%. We were at a 76.8%. And then our SPED year after exit math pass rate, the state target was 70%. We were at 71%. So we were 0 in all those areas. So those highlights are the higher graduation rate than the state target, a lower dropout rate compared to the state target, and then a strong performance in year after exit assessments.
So just to kind of reiterate our increase in numbers. So if you notice, we have our student number or student population in SPED has increased by about 12 to 1,300 in about the last 2 years, and we're continually increasing with many referrals coming in, which we talked about a couple of months ago in our department. So some of the highlights we would like to share. We've had continuous improvement in our RDA data over the last 3 years. We were highlighted at Region 4 for partnering with them on our dyslexia state mandated modules. And so they've been coming in during our PLCs so that all of our people are trained. And I will say we are ahead of the game on that. There's many districts that are, we just had a regional dyslexia meeting and some have not even started and they have to have it done by the time school starts back. So way ahead of the game, and there's 6 days of training for that. We've had performance in our Christmas celebrations at the admin building here during our Christmas celebration. We had our lead dance life skills class come and do a dance over here. We've had secondary students participating in a Valentine's dance last Thursday. All of our junior high students participated. We have Special Olympics partnering in the Sterling Star Bazaar booth that's selling things that they've made in their classes, and then Sterling students performing at our ESC. That was something new that we did this year. Our people absolutely loved it. They played handbells and drums, and it was just a fantastic celebration. And then this year also marks the 50-year celebration of our Tri-County Regional Day School for the Deaf, so in Goose Creek. So we're having a celebration in April to kind of celebrate that 50-year mark. So we're very excited about that.
Other highlights include our 18 Plus program, and they are working with Fueling Brains, going to the warehouse that's there and putting together those packets together for them. They also go out to the district warehouse. One of the pictures on the lower left-hand corner, they're at Target learning to front items, and then you see our apartment where they're learning to independent living skills. And ultimately, to the right, we want them to eventually graduate with those post-readiness skills and workforce skills. We also have Texas Workforce Solutions coming in every day to work with our students on self-advocacy and job readiness skills. We feel like that is a huge need. And then collaboration with the Houston Food Bank, we're doing a service project with them as well. And then Special Olympics, we've had lots of competitions recently. Most recently, we had table tennis at Gentry. We had 65 athletes from Goose Creek participate. And then we did have, for the first time, cornhole is new to Special Olympics. We had 30 athletes competing. And then for the Winter State Games this past weekend, it was in Bee Cave, Texas. We had 40 athletes, so 40 volleyball teams and 1 floorball team. It's the first year for floorball for Goose Creek. Most athletes we've ever had taken to state. Upcoming, we have basketball tournament coming with 72 athletes competing. And then cycling will be on March 26th with competition on Friday, April 25th. And then last but not least, is soccer. As a soccer mom, I should highlight this, starts March 25th. Competition is on Saturday, April 26th.
And I would like to share as well, volleyball was second in state at the Winter Olympic Games this past weekend. Yay. So we just found that out as well. And so the last piece of information we have here is just our special ed. Oh, sorry, Mr. Minson. It's right outside of Austin.
West side of Austin.
Yes.
Very nice place.
And then we have our special ed acronym quick reference guide, and we did update that. So there was one little typo, I think, at the bottom. And then also they refer to emotional disturbance, and it has changed to emotional disability. So we just wanted to be sure. So we do have that updated, I think, on your
SpedTex didn't update theirs, so we found you a good one.
Yes, we did, with lots of acronyms because we know SPED is full of acronyms. So any questions?
Talking about dyslexia and reading programs. Mm-hmm. So if I can get there, I'll ask a more intelligent question. The reading by design. So our elementary kids are in their classroom most of the day, then they're pulled for this reading by design?
Yes, in their
Okay.
intervention time.
So intervention, okay, that's the word I was looking for.
Yes.
Do they do that daily, twice a week?
Most of the time, it's 4 days a week.
Okay.
So for 45 minutes. So with these programs, there's fidelity statements, and so you are pretty much tied to, you know, the fidelity of the program, and they recommend certain amount of minutes or.
Is there a evaluation of that reading by design, or do we depend on maps and what have you?
So we
to see
also
if
do
it's
maps and all of that, but we also do dibbles. We do a lot of different progress monitoring with our students for dyslexia, and we track all of that.
And the progress report mentioned right under that, is that specific to dyslexia? Like
Yes,
here's
so we
our
do
progress from
Yes.
this 9 weeks to next 9 weeks, in addition to regular classroom progress reports.
Correct. And they have mastery checks in the program.
Okay.
And so once the mastery check is done, that information is sent home to the parent as well.
And then way down, still on dyslexia, but the slide that told us how many more we have in special ed, we have 17.65% last year. How much of that is because we had to move dyslexia to special ed?
So some of that, but we've also, you know, had a huge increase in our AU students. And so we've had, you know,
increase in autism as well.
Yes.
And then how much of that was because the state of Texas got in trouble for misidentifying SPED students, and we were just allowed to do our job finally?
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not that we have more kids, we're just able to service them better.
Correct.
Make sure you tell people that. Because you guys are doing a great job.
I have a question about
Mr. Clem.
dyslexia also. So on slide 6, it talks about some of the students are being served virtually. How do you determine if they're served virtually?
So we do have some kids that are in our virtual academy, and so we do have, if they're dyslexic, they're served virtually through there.
That makes
sense.
So,
yes.
Okay.
Not many. I want to say we have like 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Great report. And
Thank you.
wonderful accomplishments. Okay, Dr. O'Brien, we will now move into the agenda item for action item. I'm going to ask you to administration to read all the items, and then we'll move forward.
All right, action item 7A, consideration of consent agenda, the 25-26 budget planning guide, as previously presented by Ms. Clark. Number 2, property foreclosures as presented to the board.
Okay.
Administration does recommend approval of these items.
Okay, are there any items that any board member would like to pull for discussion or separate consideration?
No, it's short.
No items pulled. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 7A1 and 7A2?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Clem and second by Mr. Martinez. How about that? I got it. Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay.
Next item is 7B. It's future board agenda items, board training, and board meetings. As previously requested by the board, we've gone ahead and itemized the upcoming superintendent's reports, but of course we're at the leisure of the board to edit or modify, but at the next meeting it would be expected we'd have a budget update, fine arts update, superintendent's evaluation.
Yeah, I'm going to speak a little bit about the superintendent evaluation with the staff here, with the board members here. And what I'm going to do, Mr. Clem, with your help, I'm going to look at the superintendent's evaluation summary. And then I looked on the calendar that was on for the budget review. So first, we're going to have some challenges with dates again. And so when I looked at the calendar for our first budget review, we're going to be looking at, let me get my notes, I wrote it down. We're going to be looking at March 24th is our first special meeting for budget review. And then we look at March 25th. And then you guys, we have some folks who are going to the governance training, and then spring break. So Noemi, we're going to have to look at those dates, but we also need to be in contact and get a date that coordinate with Dr. O'Brien's schedule and our school board attorney. I can never get that right. Old habits. With the attorney with David Hodges, yes. And so But hopefully this week I will send you guys, once I speak with you, Mr. Clem, for the packet. And because I look for it everywhere, just couldn't. And Tiffany mentioned that you might be able to assist me with that. Okay. And so we'll look at then we have our second special meeting for the budget workshop, and that moves into April 1st. So we're going to have to look at something in between that time, you guys. So kind of look at dates, and I'll work with Noemi, and we'll set out some things to request dates if you all don't mind. But we need to move forward with the superintendent's review.
Ms. Brought-Thames, with that said, if anybody in the gallery can answer this, is the most recent update of the strategic plan what's on the website right now? Yes. So it is 100%? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kendall. Okay, so as we've done that, board training, governance camp, board meeting. Oh, we're going into closed session, y'all. So hang on, let me find one little thing. Okay. The board will now recess into closed session pursuant to one or more of the following sections of the Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, and 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed session. The time is now 8 p.m. Thank you. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is now 9:34. No action was taken while the board was in closed session.
At this time, Madam President, administration brings before the board for consideration to approve elections and accept resignations and retirements as presented.
I'll move to approve.
I second.
Okay. The motion was moved by Ms. Guy and second by Mr. Martinez. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, right hand. Okay. It passes. Noemi and
we have two administrative elections this evening. One is the academic dean at Stewart Career Tech High School. Ms. Lisa Vavrica is recommended.
Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
I second.
Okay, the motion has been moved by Mr. Campisi and second by Mr. Martinez. There any discussion? There be no further discussion?
Hold on. Is this person here?
They were here earlier. They came through and shook hands earlier.
I want to make sure that I was on. Hey, I saw.
Thank you.
I thought he forgot. No.
Mr. Renteria, for bringing that to our attention. We didn't want him to forget about that with Mr. Sampson again, right?
We'll hear it again, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's 7-4. It's motion carries.
Administration brings before the board this evening Coordinator of Campus Athletics Head Football Coach, GCM, Mr. Jaymond Cleveland.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Guy moved and Mr. Renteria second. Any discussion?
Yes, I'm going to vote for this guy because he's a former Robert E. Lee Gander, and he's well deserving of this position.
Good.
And I approve.
All right. Okay. Anyone else? All in favor, raise your hand. Okay.
There it is.
Unanimously. So we're
Now I
good.
met him too.
Motion carries.
I know, I saw him here. That's what.
Anything else, Dr. O'Brien?
Administration rests.
Thank you. And we thank everyone for all the great presentations tonight, and thank you all. There be no further business before this board. This meeting is adjourned at 9:36. Have a good night.
You're supposed to slam your gavel.
Oh, okay. It's official.
That was weak.
They told me.
I said slam. I didn't say.
No, I'm not doing that anymore because he got